Hi, my name is Victoria Seed, and I am coming to you from the Vesta Approach in Manchester, in the UK. I help women worldwide who are living with and affected by a loved one's addiction, right from the point where you know a loved one is using a substance and they may or may not have admitted it. And I help people whose loved ones are in recovery as well, because that's a pretty tricky time to navigate when a person stops using their substance. The problems don't stop for the family, and we've got to find ways to recover together. And that's what I help quite a lot of my clients with as well. So, this week, the topic that I wanted to talk about, which isn't coming up on the screen, is how to plan for if a loved one lapses. So, I work with clients whose loved ones are in recovery, might have been through rehab, might have stopped using the substance, whatever. And they are often full of anxiety and stress about things going wrong again. So I wanted to address this in the 10 at 11 today. And this session is a 10-minute session on a topic related to addiction and family recovery. If you are not already in there, please come and join my free community. It's a Facebook community called Not My Addiction. It is full of women just like you who are going through this very tricky journey. And in that group, we connect with others who are going through the journey, and I'm in there as well. So please head over there and join us. All right. So, first of all, the first thing I'm going to say is remember that if you've been going through this journey, you're not starting from the beginning. So, where you were a year ago, or 2 years ago, 6 months, 5 years, whatever it is from their recovery, you're not starting from the point that you were at before. And that's really important to remember, because people often think when that emotional part of the brain takes over, the strategic and the thinking part of the brain, oh my gosh, if it happens again, we're going to have to go through all this again. And you're not going to, because chances are, if you've worked with me, you will be in a much better place. But if you've been through this cycle of recovery anywhere, whichever pathway you've taken, you're never going to go back to the beginning for you as a person. So please bear that in mind. um, the kind of second thing I wanted to say really is that there's a difference between a lapse and a relapse. Now, while I've done my training over the last nearly 2 decades, we used to say that, lapse is a part of the recovery cycle, but I don't say that anymore, because I have said it to clients a long time ago where, if you have a lapse, it's part of the recovery cycle. But as we know, if we say that to somebody who has problems with alcohol or drugs, it kind of sometimes might be perceived as giving them permission to do it. And we don't want that. We don't want that. So, what we want to do, we want to have a mindset of hope, the hope that our loved ones can make that change. You can choose to change. They can stick with that change. But sometimes something might happen whereby they end up picking that substance up again. Okay. It is not the end of the world, because you've got all of your strategies, your techniques, your history, and your knowledge, because you've done work on yourself. Okay. If you haven't done work on yourself and your loved ones just stop using the substance and you're crossing your fingers and hoping for the best, please give me a call, because I can help you. Okay, so remember that with a lapse, we're talking about picking up that substance, but it's a temporary thing. And you, as an affected family member, as a loved one of that person, can support them to navigate away from their substance as soon as possible. Now, a relapse is reverting back to old behaviors. So they may well revert back to the old behavior, but you will not. So you're still in more of a position of power, okay? And control of yourself, which is what we need. Um, the third thing I wanted to say really was, look at the support that you have available around you and draw on that. And if you don't have any, come and join. please. The Facebook group, not my addiction. So let's have a look at this then. So in terms of history, look at the knowledge you've already got. So what has worked so far to keep your loved one sober? What has worked so far? And remember that recovery isn't always about sobriety. So some people will come to me and say, "Oh, compared to what things were like before, they do use every so often, but it's not going back to being as bad as it is before." So you've got two options at that point, haven't you? Can I live like this with this relapse every week, every month, every whatever? Because if you're coming to me for help, my guess is that you're not. Um, or is there more work to be done with my loved one and you around setting boundaries and asking for what you need and making sure you get that? Because you don't have to put up with somebody else's substance using behavior. There is a lot that you can do, and particularly if it impacts you. Okay, so that kind of mindset, oh, it's not as bad as it was before, can be actually quite harmful to your own health and your own well-being. Okay, so really think about that. So write this down, what has helped before to keep them in recovery, whatever that looks like for them. Um, do more of that. Yeah. What are their triggers? So what are their triggers? What is it that you've noticed that's made them pick up that drug or alcohol previously? Write those down. You can't be with them and put that layer of protection around them all the time. That is their choice. But you can get ahead of the substance by being really aware of what those triggers are. And how do they manage the craving? So when you might see them and you might recognize, or you might have recognized them thinking about their substance. It depends on your relationship and how they are, and all sorts of factors about whether they talk to you about that or not. So think about that. What happens when the craving? What can you see? And writing this stuff down is really useful because then you feel a little bit more prepared. Rather than letting all of these thoughts into your head, like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, what if my loved one relapses? I can't cope, it's going to be awful, da, 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 da. And then you're filled with anxiety about something that potentially is never going to happen. So think about what is within your control and what isn't within your control. And what is within your control is to write this stuff down, to have it in your notes on your phone, on a pad, journal, whatever you use, so that you can get a step ahead and leave it there. Because if you're constantly worrying about this thing that might not happen, you're just going to make yourself poorly, aren't you? All right. So think about that history. Think about as well and write down the signs that they have used the substance. So, how have you known in the past? How have they been? What do they look like physically? How do they behave towards you and others? Do they withdraw? Are they more sociable? Because these things can be different depending on the substance, the person, where they use the substance. So, think about that thing. So, how do you know when they've used? How do you know? Were there any signs that they were coming down off a substance or hungover? So get that down on paper. And then go back to that support. What support have they had in the past? Has it been enough, do you think? And what support have you had? Because everybody within the family where there is a substance needs their own help and support. If you've got any children, please check out NACOA, National Association for the Children of Alcoholics. They've got loads of resources that apply to children of people who use drugs as well. And that is children right through to adulthood, by the way. So there's loads of stuff there. And then in the moment, what I would suggest you do if this does happen, take some deep breaths before you challenge. Do not react. We want to be responding. So stay calm, confident, and connected with your loved one, because the worst thing you can do is fly off a handle, which ultimately is probably going to be an excuse for them to continue the use, which we don't want that. You are not responsible for their substance use, they are making choice themselves. But what we can do is make sure in the moment we are saying, what do you need? What do you need from me? What might you need from others? Because remember, this isn't all on you. I've trained to do this work for nearly 2 decades. You have not. So don't think that all of this is your responsibility. So make sure you are ready with some help that your loved one can have. So spend half an hour doing this week. Spend half an hour looking at, right, what help is there for me. There is also organisations like AdFam, DrugFam have a helpline. So depending on whether you can pay or not, there is so much support out here. You can get my free download on my website as well, 10 Ways to Family Recovery, where I recommend organisations that can help, a variety of organisations. So please go and check that out. So and then there are strategies that work to do this stuff. So I'm going to have a conversation with somebody today whose loved one is lapsing. And it's like, well, there's something that needs tweaking. Any strategies if that lapse is regular? And then we go back to the basics of what I teach in my program. So please, 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 if you are struggling with a loved one's addiction, book a call in with me. Get my download, get into the group because you are not on your own. There is no point in you trying to figure this out on your own when there are services like mine who can help. So please, please, please head over to the Facebook group if you're watching this, drop your comments in below and have a good day. I will see you next week. Goodbye.